The UConn Athletic Department is having unparalleled success right now across the board under the leadership of AD David Benedict, who joined me for an exclusive interview, which you'll hear on Locked On UConn.
You are Locked On UConn, your daily podcast on the UConn Huskies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Friday and welcome back to another episode of Locked On UConn. I am Matt Schonvisky, a two-time graduate, 10-year credentialed media member, and host of the only daily UConn sports podcast, Locked On UConn, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the number one sports podcast network in the world. Please hit the like and subscribe button, and thank you for making this your first listen each and every single day. On today's show, you will hear in its entirety my exclusive interview with Athletic Director David Benedict. He's been here 10 years. Can't believe it's been 10 years. Still remember our first interaction on the football field during football practice in the spring. Since that time, if you just look back to where UConn was then to where it is today, there has been a tremendous amount of change under Benedict's leadership here with UConn Athletics. We are going to talk about some of that before we dive into the interview, because I think we just need to clearly articulate and just refresh everyone's mind of where UConn Athletics was when he first arrived, because the job he's done, the staff that he's brought in, has been tremendous transformation. We'll talk about some of that. But before we dive into today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. College basketball is nonstop. Big games, tight spreads, momentum swings every single night. From early tip-offs to late-night West Coast shootouts, there's always action on the board. And now FanDuel is giving a way to turn that energy into even bigger potential wins with a college basketball parlay profit boost. You can build any college hoops parlay you want. Rivalry games, ranked matchups, whatever fits. You can mix spreads, totals, and player props to match how you see the slate playing out. Then apply the profit boost and instantly bump up the potential payout. Go safe, go bold, ride with the team you've been following all season. It's your parlay, your style, now with more upside behind it. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com. FanDuel, play your game. Today's episode is also brought to you by TurboTax. It's tax time for a lot of us. The old ways of doing taxes is a lot. Trying to book an appointment, that's not the most convenient. Sitting in a waiting room with a stack of papers, emailing back and forth, and wondering if they really get your situation. But this year, you're getting a major upgrade. Intuit TurboTax now has in-person locations nationwide. You can meet face-to-face with a real tax expert, and your documents get uploaded straight to your TurboTax app on the spot. And just like that, you're done. Your TurboTax expert works to get every dollar you deserve, while you get real-time notifications as you go about your day. It's the relief of walking in and meeting a real person and walking out knowing your taxes are being handled right. Head to TurboTax.com/local to find a store near you and book your appointment. Again, head to TurboTax.com/local to find a store near you and book your appointment today. So as mentioned, David Benedict's been here 10 years. And if you look back, we've been through, at this school, 2 football coaches. We've been through various conference situations. We've been through some lows. But for the most part, everything that this athletic department leadership team has done here at UConn has led to unmitigated success, unmatched success on a nationwide scale in certain areas. And I think right now we're seeing UConn athletics peaking. And maybe not peaking, because I think there's more to grow here. I think it's maybe higher than it's ever been. We've talked about on this show how the trajectory of a basketball team during the course of the season, you're going to have some ups and downs and there's lows, but I think this is where the athletic department is, and I think there's still room to grow under David Benedict's tenure. Because since he came in, there's been the highs of the multiple national championships within basketball, of course, no doubt about it. But it's bigger than that. It's the overall overhaul of the athletics facilities. Let's start there. Because when David Benedict arrived, Toscano Ice Arena was not here. The new soccer stadium was not here. The new baseball stadium was not here. The new softball stadium was not here. The revamped volleyball arena was not here. The renovations of Gamble. Working with the state to renovate XL Center, now People's Bank Arena. A complete overhaul of the athletic facilities on campus. Completely transforming what UConn Athletics looks and feels like on campus. That entire hillside up to Jim Calhoun Way. Completely revamped since David Benedict arrived. Complete transformation. And then the winning. And there's a lot of winning. And the winning that's happening right now. Rewind 5 years ago. What the aura around UconnFootball was. And now, just 5 years later, 3 bowl games in 4 years, back-to-back 9-win seasons, and a coaching hire after getting an former NFL head coach to come here and revamp this program and restart this program. Now transitioning into another hire who, by all accounts and everything we've seen so far, is going to lead this program to even greater heights. And that's the piece that on a national scale, those that make decisions, and we're going to talk about some of this with David Benedict at the end of our interview, but just imagine, look at the success that UConn's having right now. And how they compare from an investment standpoint from, say, TV revenues, conference contracts, compared to the teams they're competing with, against, on a national scale, night in and night out, in basketball, in baseball, in softball, in volleyball, in field hockey, in basketball, in football. Imagine if UConn was on a level playing field. What type of success would be coming through each and every single night? Women's basketball, you can't get any better. UConn men's basketball, 2 national championships so far in the last 3 years, fighting for another one. Number 4 ranked. Multiple top 10, top 15 hockey programs at the moment. You've got baseball coming off success in the postseason. Just top to bottom, what this athletic administration, led by David Benedict, has done. And then the conference situation. Recognizing that the AAC was not working. There was a time, and we talked about it on this show, not too long ago, where attendance at the XL Center at the time was under 10,000, maybe 8,000 in the building. And we're talking about a fan base that is widely recognized as a top 10, top 5 fan base nationally. And the conference situation was killing interest because the rivalries were not there. The connection to the games were not there. In this market, and I think as more and more people get familiar with the state, this is UConn is the professional sports franchise in Connecticut. No doubt about it. There's a lot of professional sports in and around the area, drivable. You can go to games each and every single night if you want to. You've got Boston, you've got New York, here sits Connecticut, right in the middle in between. Just in baseball alone, you've got the Red Sox, Mets, and Yankees. Just in basketball alone, you've got the Celtics, the Knicks, the Nets. Just in football, you've got the Patriots, the Jets, the Giants. In hockey, you got the Bruins, the Islanders, the Devils, the Rangers. All competing for fan attention and the money that fans will take and invest to go to games. When UConn is good, as we all know, when UConn is playing top competition, that's the key. And David talked a little about this, about the atmosphere and how he wants to get the fan base filling up the rent again on a consistent basis. Yes, winning is coming. Yes, I agree. Some of it has to do with opponents too. Because in this state, with all those professional options out there, you need to compete at the highest level of competition across the board. So when UConn basketball went to the AAC, that's why you saw that dip. Yes, UConn was still good and competing at the time. But when things got a little tough, and it's UConn Tulsa versus UConn St. John's or UConn Villanova, you're going to be getting a lot more fans coming into that building against UConn Villanova and UConn St. John's and UConn Seton Hall and UConn Georgetown due to the history and the connection and the emotion that is generated by those rivalries and the perceived top level of competition. The AAC was a great football conference when it was first formed, top to bottom. They were competitive nationally. But the perception is everything, right? And the perception around here was, well, it's not UConn Pitt. It's not UConn Rutgers. It's not UConn Syracuse. It's not UConn Boston College. It's not UConn South Florida, who at the time was a top 25 ranked team year in, year out. It wasn't UConn Louisville. It wasn't UConn West Virginia. So they weren't going to spend the money at the time to invest and go to games. Add on top of that the lack of winning for a period of time. And the athletic department recognized that situation, right? And here came the Big East and the complete transformation and what UConn should have done originally way back in 2012, 2013, when the original Big East fell apart and the basketball schools left and took the names and rights while the AAC kept all the football records at the time. Put UConn in a very, very difficult spot that the others that were in that conference at the time didn't have to deal with. Because if you look back, all those schools that were part of the AAC when the football conference first formed, they were still moving up in the world of college athletics. UConn had been at the top tier. And then here came the AAC, which was a perceived step lower. Meanwhile, all these other schools were, moving up. So the interest at that level, we're getting more visibility on a national scale. They were growing their program. Whereas UConn felt like they were left out. And that added a sense of angst among the fan base, which we've seen here in terms of the competing interests and all that's played out. We all know the story. But the athletic director and the athletic administration and the donors and the board recognized what was transpiring. And they finally got it right. Because at the time, independence was the way to go. Because those that were here in and around, and athletic director David Benedict wasn't here at the time, different administration, different school president, they didn't realize that when they left a conference situation like they had and moved to one that was a perceived lower level, what was going to transpire, because they didn't know and understand the culture here in Connecticut and what was going to take place from a support standpoint. And independence at that time, especially when, if you think back to that time, what was the Big Ten doing in terms of perception of UConn? They threw a bone, right? They said, they made it a point to say, those schools that used to be in the Big East, including UConn, they even called them out, UConn, we consider, for all their school scheduling out of conference games, we consider UConn a P5 opponent. And that, at that time, UConn should have leveraged, gone independent, would have been able to schedule consistent matchups. And you would have not seen a downtick in recruiting and a downtick in fan interest. And your independent schedules could have been full of Indiana, Illinois, etc. Maybe some Penn State games that originally were scheduled here that never were made public ended up getting canceled. Maybe if the state didn't intervene with the Notre Dame series, the decade-long Notre Dame series that was being worked out. Things could have been different. But you were dealing with people and resources and leaders and administrators and state government officials that don't understand sports, didn't understand the current college landscape, making decisions at the time that put UConn in a difficult situation until Athletic Director David Benedict came in. So the job that he's done to transform UConn from an American Athletic Conference playing member to the Big East, to independence in football, revamping the entire situation with the football program, the unmitigated success that's been happening on the basketball side, it's just been a spectacular job. Spectacular job. And we will get to the exclusive interview with David Benedict after the break. Just a reminder, you can get Locked On ad-free with the Everydayer Club. Plus, members-only Discord access. Join at lockedonucon.supercast.com. Again, join at lockedonucon.supercast.com. And today's episode is also brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Welcome to the 5 Hour Energy Flavor Draft. With 18 different flavors to choose from, including new options like Confetti Craze, Fruity Rainbow, or Cotton Candy, there's something for everyone. The board is set, the flavors are ready, and I've got my number one pick for the 5 Hour Energy Flavor Draft. Tasty caffeine with island vibes, a delicious combination of pineapple and apricot flavors. Juicy, fruit-forward, tropical profile, sweet with the light tang, smooth, rounded flavor, bright and sunny taste impression, and an island-style fruit punch vibe. Let's be honest. This has been a very long winter here in the state of Connecticut. Why not get a taste of the tropics with 5 Hour Energy's Tropical Burst, giving you an extra push during the long work week grind. 5 Hour Energy shots give you a boost with zero sugar. Find your new favorite flavor of 5 Hour Energy shots, available online at 5hourenergy.com or on Amazon. Again, find your new flavor of 5 Hour Energy shots available online at 5hourenergy.com or on Amazon. Today's episode is also brought to you by Indeed. Workplace chaos, deadline stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position you have to fill still sitting open. When the pressure's on and you need the right hire, this is a job for Sponsored Jobs. Indeed Sponsored Jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for: skills, experience, location. So you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. And here's a stat that says it all. In the minute I've been talking to you, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. Less stress, less time, more results. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs.
Handle era underway. Just your overall sense of how things have gone so far. We're very early, but just how he's come to Connecticut, come to UConn, and just found a nice way to ingrain himself with the culture here.
Yeah, look, it's been a unique transition, with the way the environment is today, the number of, anytime you make a transition, there's a lot of things to accomplish, especially in football, because it's just such a large operation. Mm-hmm. So on top of having to recruit 70 players, mm-hmm. All the other things is significant too. So look, I think he's obviously had to have his head down and focused on making sure that he rebuilds the organization in a way that we're all going to be proud of what we see on the field come September. But, I think he's everything that I expected him to be. I think, he's a very experienced, competent, intelligent individual. He cares deeply about what he's doing. I think he has quickly gained an appreciation, more so than what you can during an interview, about what we have to offer here, and not just at the university or in, our facility, but just as a university and as a state. So I couldn't be happier with how things have transitioned thus far, and, continuing to look forward to spend more time with him.
And he's obviously had a chance to build out his staff all the new players that you talked about as well. And he's had a chance to interact with the fans a little bit too last week at the St. John's game, People's Bank Arena, the event there, to really meet and greet with the fans, as well as introduce his coordinators as well. Just what's the feedback you're hearing from the fan base in terms of those type of things?
Yeah, I think, the risk that you have when you built the momentum that we did under Coach Moore's leadership, the risk is that stalls. You lose ground. But I am pleasantly not surprised, but I'm certainly happy that I don't think we've lost any momentum. In fact, I think with the way I interpret things, I think the momentum's building. And so I think for the most part, you're never going to make everybody happy when you're making these kinds of hires. But I think generally everyone's really excited about Coach Candle. I think he's introduced himself to our fan base in a very good way thus far. And I think they did a heck of a job from a recruiting standpoint. So I think people are going to be thrilled with the product that they see on the field. Will be different, a lot of different personnel, different offense, defense. But ultimately, if you just look to see what he's done historically as a head coach, I think there's a lot to be excited about.
Yeah, and part of that uptick is recruiting and NIL. Just what have you like from the response from the fan base and those that invest in the program, how they responded to Coach Candle?
Look, I think the response has been great. I think we've got a long way to go in football. We're seeing, the uptick in the way that you would expect. But I would say we're beyond the idea that we have to prove to our fan base. I mean, for a long time, it was hard to say that, hey, we expect the stadium to be full, because for a long period of time, we may not have given them, our fan base, a compelling enough reason to make the effort to invest the money to come out and support. But, after the last 4 years, 3 bowl games in 4 years, the last 2 years, back-to-back 9-win seasons, the university is stepping up with the assistance of, a lot of different people to invest. And so, yeah, I think we want Rentschler to be what it was when it first opened up, and we want that place to be packed. And we've seen glimpses, the Duke games, NC State, 4 years ago. Like, this can happen. Rentschler Field, Pratt Whitney Stadium, when it is full, it's a great place. We've got a young man that's on this team now that played at Duke. He talked about the environment. I think that's probably one of the reasons why he may have been interested in coming here, among a lot of other things. But, we are getting very, very close to a place where we can take the next step, which is significant because we've already taken several. I mean, the fact that we're competing the last couple of years with the P4s and the way we have, the fact that we beat the ACC champion this year, I think it's time for everyone to say, okay, hey, this is about the future. Let's get on board and really, pour the gas to this thing.
Do you want to get in there?
Yeah, we can finish up here.
Okay. Cross athletic department, obviously men's basketball and women's basketball, wrapping up regular seasons, hockey programs as well. Just everything you guys are doing as an athletic department across the board seems to be excelling at the right time, peaking at the right time. Men's hockey, women's hockey will be hosting Hockey East Championship this weekend, Big East Tournament down in Mohegan. You're going to be very busy, obviously. Let's start with women's basketball first, because 11th undefeated season in program history. Just your thoughts on Geno continuing to have success, and they can do something here very special come end of the year in April that only a few teams here have ever done.
Yeah, I mean, look, special is what you expect. The Geno always talks about, how do you do something better than what's already been done here? And I know that that's what drives him. I know that weighs on him, the expectations, which he certainly is not afraid of. He's created them. But yeah, the way and the manner in which they operate is next level. It's unique. And, I'm just very proud to be associated with it. Certainly have learned a lot in my 10 will be 10 years next week that I've been here at UConn. And so, look, very proud to be a part in some small way in his operation. And yeah, I just enjoy getting to watch that organization continue to produce, unbelievable results. And look, there are a lot of other very good programs out there that are resourced extremely well, that are being led by really good coaches. But I like our chances.
Yeah, absolutely. And then on the men's side, just seeing what the program's done coming off the Creighton loss at home, the Villanova win, the win over St. John's, just the atmosphere that you saw at People's Bank Arena that night. Was that maybe the tops you've seen in Hartford?
I don't, it's hard to say. And there's been a lot of conversation about our fan base and environments this year. Talk about, we've gone corporate with our ticket base, which is like sort of comical because like we're one of the least corporate, driven athletic departments in the country, or certainly that I've worked for. So look, we have a passionate fan base, but I do think that, there's a variety of reasons that I think created maybe suboptimal energy in our building for one reason or another. It certainly isn't the performance of the team, because the team, what are we, 27-3 or some, we've lost 3 games. It's amazing. I do fear that there is a complacency sometimes that creeps into a fan base, and a lack of appreciation for how hard it is to do what's being done right now in that program. And where there was a climb when Dan got here to get back to that place, there was more, I think, energy and passion being a part of that climb. And now that we've got here and won a couple more championships, it's almost like there's this expectation that just should happen, as opposed to, no, you got to bring it every day. And they're the best example of it, because they take very few days off. And so, much like our coaches and our student athletes, who are rarely ever taking any days off, we need our fans 16, 17 times a year. And so, while going to a game can be a social event for some people, just because it's a social event doesn't mean that you can't bring energy to the environment. So, hey, what they're doing is phenomenally challenging. It's you look around the country, there's not too many places that are operating at a consistent level across the men's and women's basketball programs. We're the only university that I know of that has 2 teams ranked in the top 5, and to be doing that outside of this whole Power 4 structure, I think is something that every resident in the state, whether you're a fan of Connecticut or not, should have a great deal of appreciation for and should take pride in.
Yeah, and definitely don't take it for granted, because it does not just happen overnight, for sure.
And you can lose it quickly.
That is true. Last question. When you guys invested in the hockey programs and built Toscano, did you guys envision this quickly, that you could have this type of success across not just the men's side, but also the women's side now with what you guys are doing at Hockey East?
Well, I think if you look across the board, over the last, really since COVID, the construction started before COVID, but we started opening up these new facilities after COVID. And if you really look at all the programs that have benefited thus far, baseball's been 2 super regionals since we opened up Elliott. Softball has gotten back to the NCAA tournament, won conference championships, something they hadn't done, I think, in 20 years. Men's and women's ice hockey both getting to the NCAAs for the first time ever in their history, and on the precipice of going again. So I think, and we talk about this with our coaches a lot, if it was just about money or just about facilities, then the saying goes like the Yankees would win the World Series every year, but it's not. It's about a lot of other things. But I think we can also be honest with ourselves that if you don't have the requisite support operationally, or if you don't have a facility plan that can attract the type of talent that you need to compete at that level, then it's almost impossible today to expect those kinds of or have those types of expectations of competing at the level that our programs are now. And so it's a combination of having great leadership with our head coaches, having great facilities, having the resources that allow you to sit down at the table and compete. When you sit down for poker, you got to put the ante in. You got to have at least enough to ante. Sometimes you can bluff your way through and don't have a biggest stack as somebody else. We don't necessarily need the biggest stack on the table, but we got to have enough to sit down at the table. And we're fortunate that we've been given enough to sit down at the table.
Yeah, now just imagine if you had what everybody else had, what the success here would look like. I mean, you're top across the board. You're having success across the board.
I think that's a scary proposition for a lot of other programs out there, because what we're doing without the 40, 50, 60, 70 million dollars that some other programs benefit from their conferences, I think I don't know if it's being duplicated anywhere else in the country.
Yeah. Well, David, appreciate the time.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot.
Appreciate
Yeah. That was Athletic Director David Benedict. We'll be back on the other side with interviews post-practice here at UconnFootball. That was Athletic Director David Benedict yesterday during spring football. That's all for today's episode. Thank you for tuning in today's episode of Locked On UConn. As we head into the weekend, Big East tournament kicking off in Mohegan. We're going to be talking about women's hockey as well as they host Hockey East. And then the men's program last night just got to number 2 in Hockey East as they won 4-1 over New Hampshire last night. We'll be talking about that as well. Men's basketball closes the regular season on Saturday. There's so much going on, plus more football player interviews and head coach Jason Candle to get to from yesterday's spring practice. Make sure you like and subscribe. Locked On UConn all over social media, and you get all your latest episodes. If you never miss an episode, the Everyday Club is built for you. Get Locked On UConn ad-free, plus members-only Discord access and more. Head to lockedonucon.supercast.com to join the club. Again, lockedonucon.supercast.com to join the club. That's all for today's show. See ya!